This is still Breach, so you will still be opening breaches and slaying hordes of otherworldly monsters. We've taken all the lessons we've learned since the release of Breach 9 years ago and improved upon it in every way we can.
Dude, looks so good. Kill monsters,
You're
get
still
loot.
mostly just slaughtering hordes of enemies.
Hell yeah, dude.
This passive can result in birthed uniques becoming Foulborn. For example, this Foulborn pull range no longer has increased projectile pull range.
Wait, Foulborn Headhunter. I like that. Dude, Foulborn Headhunter.
I'm sure you'll come up with some.
Oh, that's cool, dude.
Leave it up tools
New
to play
skills.
With.
Okay.
It creates a barrier of kinetic power, causing allied projectiles to rip.
That's old Frostwall. Wait, that's insane.
Okay,
Bloodline classes.
They defeat much more often.
Oh, it's probably the Alt Ascendancies.
Priest of Kopek, you have equipped.
It's like the Alt Ascendancies of Freshia.
The Ashabi, with the unseen hand, you
Plus
can equip
one
a
ring
third
slot.
ring. But you'll have to decide if that comes at the expense of having no amulet, no belt, or no flasks. Unlight Silhouette adds a hefty life cost to all your spells.
Never mind. Hey guys, so I want to do a quick overview and my quick initial thoughts of the new 3.27 live reveal that just happened, probably yesterday if you're watching this video. Yeah, overall, this patch, my current TLDR is, I think the league mechanic in overall league looks really fucking fun. I'm a big fan of Breach. One of my favorite league mechanics was actually the first league I really played the game. So again, a revamped Breach league is definitely something I'm looking forward to. Now, the patch notes itself for me is extremely underwhelming. The patch notes is definitely one of the weakest ones I've seen so far. That definitely should have been way more balanced changes. Overall, as my quick TLDR of what's in the patch notes, at least the stuff that matters the most in my opinion. For farms, the Alva raw currency farm is nerfed because the evolution scarab got nerfed. Abyss Force removed, so that farm's just gone. The Blight Scarab is nerfed. This Blight Scarab of Bloomin', it was bugged. It used to spawn like probably 20 uniques and 60 plus rare monsters, and now should just appropriately only spawn 3 unique bosses. But nonetheless, that farm is nerfed, so that farm is dead. Regular Blade is still good, still just solid, but the the Blight currency farm we were doing last league will no longer be a thing. Risk Scarab, you can only use 1 EMF device now. You can't stack them up to 5. I think it's a good change. I think using 5 risk wasn't that healthy for the game, and it really made the end game builds quite limited. So this is probably a fine change. Breach, the old Breach farm is dead. That is because it is the new league mechanic. So hopefully the new mechanic Breach does bring some new farm with it. We'll have to wait and see how good it is. Ritual Giant Rogue Exiles. This is just completely dead. Giants can no longer spawn on rituals, only regular exiles. Also, as a side note that I forgot to mention here, but Rogue Exiles also drop less loot. So even just the regular Rogue Exile farm that people used to do, that is also nerfed. We don't know by how much. They just said they drop less loot. Usually though, that kind of means it's probably most likely dead. This is a big one, map effect nerf. So there's 32% less map effect on the skill tree. So you generally had like 90% map effect at a full skill tree, and you're going to 58% map effect. So if you're wondering what are they changing, they're essentially removing all these small nodes here, increase map effect, and turn to like increase magic monsters or rare monsters, which is kind of whatever. So yeah, these are gone. These small ones here, and these small ones as well. And then these 2 travel nodes are also gone as well. So in total, you are losing 32% map effect. That is a massive nerf to endgame loot, because that is, pack size, quant, rarity, more currency, more scarabs, right? It's everything. So yeah, that is definitely a massive change. Also, as a result, this will make the endgame farms, every endgame farm, a whole lot easier. It also does nerf some other stuff too. For example, like Harvest, as Harvest want a lot of pack size, so you have less map effect, you have less pack size. So yeah, this is probably one of the biggest changes here, because this affects every farm in the game to a certain extent. So it's definitely a overall big change here. Now, another massive change that a lot of people might overlook is that tier 17 modifiers now also give pretty equivalent quant to that of tier 16 modifiers, quant, rarity, and pack size. This is pretty massive. On average, this is giving your map somewhere around 30% less quant than before, both in your tier 16.5s and in your tier 17s. And this is pre-map effect. So post-map effect, you're losing something like 50% quant per map, which is a lot of loot loss. Now, to say what the change actually is, so essentially they're making these modifiers, this one right here, where it gives 109% more currency, 31 quant, 19 rarity, and 10% pack size. They're making these special modifiers give less quant, less rarity, and less pack size, equal to that of a tier 16 modifier. So it should look something like this, where it's like 13 quant, 8 rarity, 5% pack size, but it'll still have that more currency on it. But yeah, as you can see, that will be a massive nerf to quantity, because you usually have 2 or 3 of these mods on your map, making your tier 17 and tier 16.5 a extremely juiced with a lot of quant. So yeah, that is another loot nerf there. And then also combined with the loss of mercs. Mercs, if you didn't know, they gave you 50% more currency. So if we include everything, right, map effect nerf, tier 17 nerfs, and the loss of mercs, you're probably looking at around, in endgame farms, around 60% less raw currency drops. So if you're dropping like 10 divines every 5 maps before, it would now be 4 divines every 5 maps. It should be roughly around that range. Of course, this does also not count risk scarab. So if you're using multiple risk scarabs, that also heavily nerfs it. But yeah, either way, it's definitely a lot of loot we are losing this league. They definitely nerfed a lot of the end game. And as a result, the end game is also going to be much easier to enter and much easier to farm, which, to be honest, I'm not the most happy about, because you do want something to grind for in this game. And if end game is going to be a whole lot easier and also a whole lot less rewarding, then there's going to be less to grind for, which does make the game a little bit less fun, in my opinion. Hopefully the new breach is just insane and makes up for all of this. We'll have to wait and see. As a result, these nerfs don't really affect tile loot, which will probably make another comeback after this patch. Now, what is tile loot? A tile loot is essentially guaranteed rewards from certain league mechanics. For example, Legion boxes where it has like a currency icon over the head is guaranteed to give currency. Most of the time, stuff like map effect and quant doesn't really affect it all that much. So it's still just as strong post-patch. So yeah, stuff like strong boxes, which are really, really good. None of these nerfs don't affect it too much. It does lose a little bit from the map effect, but it's not too bad. It's definitely not as bad as stuff like the Alba Farmer stuff. Ultimatum, people do this mechanic white already. We just do white maps. So yeah, Ultimatum didn't get touched. And I will say, as of right now, Ultimatum is probably the best mechanic in the game. It's probably the highest currency an hour if you do the dual account setup, where you play 2 accounts and the 2 ultis at the exact same time. It's been like kind of meta and pretty popular already before. Yeah, I do think Ultimatum, with all these nerfs, because none of these nerfs affect Ultimatum because it's tile loot, probably does make it the best farm in the entire game. And also one last loot nerf for people that did do it is that Gravicious. The Gravicious farm is most likely dead. Essentially, Gravicious in the safe house for Cat Arena, you got Gamba div cards, right? You got random div cards. You can get Mage Blood, Apothecary card, Divine cards were pretty common, stuff like that. But they reduced the chance to get these low weighted cards. So most likely the Gravicious farm that people were doing is most likely dead. Yeah, quite a bit of loot nerfs, quite a bit of endgame farm nerfs. There was also no scarab changes outside of the nerfs I mentioned here. So the Evo Scarab nerf and the Abyss Hordes nerf and the Blight one, right? Besides that, there's been no other scarab changes confirmed so far. So TLDR, less farms than last league, pretty unfortunate. And there's no scarab changes, there's no map changes, and there's no league mechanic changes outside of Breach itself. So yeah, there's really no real possibility of new farms also existing, which is kind of unfortunate. At least right now, going into the patch, if this is all the patch notes we have, yeah, it's just going to be essentially last league, but less farms, because yeah, they aren't adding anything new, so new farms can't really exist. Now, maybe they will introduce some last minute scarab changes. That's certainly what I hope for. Or maybe Breaches is absolutely insane and we just blast Breach all league. That would also be pretty fun. As for the build meta, there really wasn't that much balance, and it's mostly why the patch notes are pretty mid for me, because yeah, there was practically like no balance in the patch notes whatsoever. They really didn't nerf or buff anything, which is honestly kind of unfortunate. One of the big nerfs they did was Volcanic Fissure of Snaken, and they killed Volcanic Fissure of Snaken. So yeah, Volcanic Fissure of Snaken no longer has the more AoE, 50% more. That's massive. But most importantly, the fissure will not automatically target enemies that already were hit by a previous fissure in the chain. Essentially, this means you can no longer triple hit, you can only double hit on fissure, which is a massive damage nerf. And then the AoE is a massive clear nerf. More or less, I say the skill is pretty much dead. Now, you can just play Earth Shatter instead. Earth Shatter is also extremely strong, and a lot of people will say it was already on par with fissure. So yeah, if you do want to play slams, just play Earth Shatter instead of fissure, and you're completely fine. Yeah, but as for patch notes, that's really about it. There's not much to really talk about here. They did nerf Bama, Blink Arrow, Mirror Arrow, but outside of that, there really wasn't that impactful changes. They nerfed Econk for leveling, and yeah, that's pretty much like about it. A lot of these buffs don't really matter or do all that much, to be honest. I guess the biggest one is probably Volatile Dead. Maybe comes back into the meta as like Volatile Dead build, But yeah, that's really about it. There really wasn't that much balance changes whatsoever. One big nerf they did do was spell suppression, and this is definitely one that I'm not too happy about, because yeah, spell suppression now only prevents 40% of damage from hits from 50%, effectively meaning you're taking 20% more spell damage from hits than you were before. Now I'm not too happy about this because they did 0 ranger changes, 0 deadeye changes, so the squishiest class in the game, which is ranger overall, just got squishier. So yeah, definitely a questionable change here. Maybe there is some skill tree changes that does make this true, but currently there is like absolutely like 0 skill tree changes, but maybe it's not done. Once again, I don't really know. GEG recently has stopped doing full patches after reveals, and they've been doing it over the week. So we don't really know, what's done and what's finished. Pretty unfortunate, but yeah, as of right now, there is no skill tree changes. Yeah, right now, the build meta is pretty much looking exactly the same. At the top end, you have Strength Stacker, End Stacker, you have Penance Brand. These are still all extremely top tier builds. Trickster did get nerfed, but it didn't get nerfed hard enough to where you just still wouldn't play End Stacker. So yeah, end game builds are probably more or less going to be the same. Maybe you use like a new skill or something with the new skills. But yeah, Strength Stacker, End Stacker, ES Stacking, PB, they're all going to be exceptional endgame, and they didn't get nerfed pretty much in the slightest. So they're still going to be absolutely insane. If you like finding the builds, yeah, they're still the best endgame builds. As for League starters, at least as of right now, League starters look to be exactly the same as last patch and 3.25 because nothing really changed. The only X factor here is the new Bloodline Ascendancies. Now, these are essentially optional ascendancies that anyone can take in the game, and they do cost your ascendancy skill points. So, for example, you can be a Deadeye, put 6 points into Deadeye, and then put 2 points into the Oshabi Ascendancy. So yeah, they are pretty interesting. We don't really have all of them out. There's going to be 10 of them. We currently only have 3. Right now, they look okay. They don't look too strong. They don't look like, too weak. They just look okay. Definitely will be used in some builds for sure. This is definitely the biggest X factor for League starters to decide, is there going to be like real new viable League starters or not? We'll have to wait and see for that. Yeah, besides that, maybe, new potential League start is, of course, like Poison Assassin stuff with Cast on Crit. It does look a little bit potent, but that's pretty much, I would say, for League starters. I don't think there's all that much new, unless, like I said, these Bloodline Ascendancies, which they are going to reveal before the League launch, are, the next 7 ones are pretty insane and build defining. But we'll have to wait and see. But once again, they did say the patch notes were not fully done, so hopefully that means we get a more passive skill changes to make the suppression nerf make sense for Ranger. We hopefully get more Scarab changes, so there's more end game and diverse farms. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, right now we're kind of an unknown. We don't really know. Unfortunately, the patch notes once again aren't fully finished on launch, so we don't really know probably until the league start. My current build thoughts, if you're wondering, is Wander. New skill has great potential. KB is also pretty strong. And Venom Gyre or Cobra Lash. These are also pretty strong skills, so that might do. As for bows, I'm not really interested in bows once again, because Ranger defense was actually just nerfed and bows were already so squishy. The damage is still pretty mediocre. The new skill could maybe be good. They did get a new Tornado skill, which they do showcase and live stream and over here. I don't think Conflagration is that good, but yeah, Wind Burst could be decent. You summon tornadoes, maybe you could overlap and get a lot of damage from this. We'll have to wait and see, but I don't think it's going to be that insane. And then Kinetic Rain looks absolutely busted, and this is a wand skill, and it's one of the main reasons why I might play Wander, but I will wait for the skill gem info. Yeah, that is my current thought. I think Wander and Venom Gyre or Cobra Lash are pretty top tier starters, and it's definitely one I'm looking forward to. Of course, I'll have my build guides out, I'll have my tier list out, all that before a league start. But yeah, overall, I think the mechanic looks extremely fun, and I hope it's very, very rewarding. I think the patches themselves are really mediocre, and I definitely wish they'd done more. I can just hope for it that it's just not done, and maybe by next week there's a lot more patches in the patch notes. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that's all for my quick patch TLDR. There is more changes in here, of course. I just think these are the most important if you're someone who just wants some quick info. But yeah, that's about it. If you have any comments, leave a comment below, of course. And of course, I'll have all my videos done before league start if you're wondering.